Welcome back to GregTech New Horizons. I have progressed through the low voltage tier, so it is time for another base check-in. So, on the outside my base looks pretty much exactly the same, with the exception of this oil tank and this oil pipeline. So here I have started drilling for oil. I wasn't sure how long these oil spouts were supposed to last, but this one has lasted plenty long. It hasn't run out yet, and I think it's pulled something like 4,000 buckets or something already. These machines do explode if they get rained on, but luckily this oil spout is in a desert, so we don't have to cover it. Anyway, all the fun new stuff is on the inside of the base. So, up here is where I started adding the low voltage electrical machines. I took the steam from my existing steam age setup, piped it in here, and this is the lab. This is where I've been doing basically a lot of standing in front of these machines, putting stuff in, taking stuff out, just spending a lot of time crafting in here. And powering this lab, I have 4 of these basic steam generators. I did add a little bit more steam. If we go up here, I added these, a set of 32 solar boilers. These have now dropped to 1/3 of their original production, but this was plenty of steam. And this provided all of the steam power I needed for the start of the tier. But in order to make the electric blast furnace, I needed more power first, so that is when I got the oil pump running. And down here I have all my oil processing. So here I have one distillery turning the oil into sulfuric light fuel, and then this machine takes the sulfur off. And I calculated that one distillery like this should be enough to power about 15 of these combustion generators. So that's enough to power all the stuff that I've needed to do so far. And then in addition to producing the light fuel for power, I've got this setup making sulfuric acid, although this has gotten quite backed up. And if it keeps getting backed up, then that means my power generation will back up, so I'm going to have to figure out something about that. And then, literally just because I hated the way that these potin, is that how you pronounce it? These tan pipes looked. I wanted different colored pipes, so I automated production of polyethylene so I could make these nicer looking white pipes. And this whole setup is... This is such a tangle of pipes. What I was trying to do here was use as few conveyors and pumps as possible, so I've just got a bunch of these hoppers pulling from the machines, but that does sort of limit how I can build it. So anyway, I'm probably never touching that again, and when I move on to the next tier, I'm going to have to expand my oil production, but that's fine. This was just sort of a quick little experimental setup. And here I have my expanded water production. This water pump was needed to supply those solar boilers, and this should be enough for a long time. So having that oil power meant that I had enough power to make the electric blast furnace, which is what I did next. Up here is the electric blast furnace room. Oh, it's so quiet in here right now. Let me grab some iron and change that. This is my electric blast furnace. So here I have an arc furnace producing wrought iron, and then I can take that wrought iron, put it into this macerator, which sends the wrought iron dust straight into the electric blast furnace, which produces steel at 5 seconds per steel, and this ends up being quite a bit more energy efficient and time efficient than just putting the iron straight into the blast furnace. In order to get that oxygen, I have this setup which is automatically generating a small amount of oxygen by compressing the air, and then centrifuging it, and then just dumping the nitrogen, just throwing the nitrogen away. So this provides a trickle of oxygen, but in order to get more oxygen and get steel as fast as possible, I've got these setups up here, which take limonite and magnetite and electrolyze them or centrifuge them and get the oxygen out that way, and also the iron dust. So after I set all this up, my steel production was greatly increased, which was necessary because I used a lot of steel on my next build. So if we go through the lab here, so this, I spent way too much time setting this up. This is my new ore processing setup. I've got the steel tier of all of these machines instead of the bronze tier, which means they're twice as fast. I've got one normal ore washer here, and then this central tank is shared between the two machines, and then I have this ore washer, which is just the basic ore washer, which is much faster, but doesn't produce the byproducts. And then I've got two macerators here, and then a forge hammer, and then this is actually two steam separators. It turns out it's actually very easy to share walls by just flipping the one on top upside down, and then just because of the symmetries of the machine. So as far as I can tell, the only restriction on these multi-blocks with sharing the blocks between them is that there can't be a controller block as one of the blocks of the structure. So because the separator has a gap right here, you can just put a controller right here and then flip it upside down and share all those blocks. And then it only takes like 11 more steel casings to make the second centrifuge. But the centrifuge is actually not really the bottleneck. Actually, the ore washing is. But I don't really have enough steam to run more than one ore washer. I'm stealing some of the steam from my setup over here, but I'm also powering this ore processing setup with these new advanced steam boilers up here. I've got a set of 10 of these up here, and in order to power them, I have actually repurposed this coke oven setup that I was using for the brick blast furnace, but now that I'm not using the brick blast furnace, I don't need that charcoal there, so I'm just piping it up to these new boilers. These new boilers, by the way, are such a scam. They cost like a whole stack of steel each, and that slowed me down quite significantly just waiting for the steel in the blast furnace to finish. And it's not even really enough steam for me to run all these machines at once. Man, these pipes are just so ugly. Like, I don't know what to do with this color. And then, as you can see, I'm using these pipes. These are Project Red transportation pipes, which is one of the first logistics systems you can build. And so the way this works is, this chest is both the input chest and the overflow chest. So any ore that I have not created a rule for to be put in one of these machines will just end up here. So let's take something like this bentonite. So if we look at the bentonite and look at the ore processing chain, I can decide which parts of the chain I want to do. So here it says it will give me alumina if I wash it, and then if I then centrifuge that, it will give me calcium. And I don't know what calcium is used for yet, but I don't have any yet, so I think I'm interested. So in order to set that up, I go over here to one of these interface pipes and grab one of these chips and add it to the filter. And this says that this chest will accept that item type, the crushed bentonite ore. And then if we now put the bentonite in the chest, it will move along this pipe and go into this machine. I set it up this way rather than just directly connecting the pipes to the machines because this allows me to set up each one of these interface pipes takes 4 chips, and each one of these chips you can add 9 different filters to it. That means I can support 144 different items in my filters, and that should be good for as long as I'm using this setup, I'm hoping. After it's done, it'll output all the stuff, and since it doesn't know what to do with this new stuff, it will just go back into this input chest. So now we have the purified bentonite. If we go down this macerator path, it says it gives calcium, but the macerator doesn't give byproducts yet, so it's much more efficient to put this in the forge hammer. That will use much less energy, and it is faster. So that'll crush that. And then now I need to add a rule for the purified pile to the centrifuge. And that is all the ore processing rules for bentonite made. And then any sort of final products that I can't really do anything with yet will get sent over to this storage here. So back here I can create filter rules for each of these chests for all of the final outputs that I can't do anything with yet automatically at this stage of the game. So that's what I spent a lot of time working on. I do want to share one little trick here with these filters. So if we look at this one only has one item as a filter, but this actually encompasses all raw ores, because if we look at this item name here, it is GregTech meta item 3. It turns out a lot of items in GregTech are actually the same item, and they just have different metadata. So in this filter, if I click metadata is ignored, then this will encompass all GregTech meta item 03s. And if we look at what is included as item 03, it's all the raw ores plus some other stuff that's not going to overlap with the ore processing. Now, unfortunately, that trick doesn't work with any of the other ores, because if a lot of the other ores are just item 01. I don't know why they're different, but they are, so we can't do any tricks with all the other stuff. But for the raw ores, this one rule encompasses all raw ores to be sent to the macerator. And now that I've set this up, the next step for me is to just improve my resource generation and gather a bunch of resources. I did quickly jump into the medium voltage tier just to get the good miner, and I made some medium voltage batteries. Actually, the batteries are really easy to make, and so is the battery buffer. They don't require many complicated materials, and actually, fuck, I hit the pipe. The pipes are too hot, I hit the pipe. Actually, this medium voltage battery buffer can be charged with the low voltage generators I already have. So that is very convenient. So let's go set up a little mining operation. I need more lithium for more batteries, so let's go over to one of those salt nodes. So here I am at the salt mines. I've located that this is the center of the chunk. So let's grab the stuff. Put one of these good miners down. These good miners are much better than the low voltage version of the miner because they can actually mine basically the whole ore vein, whereas the low voltage ones leave a bunch of stuff behind. Let's connect that to that. And let's get out one of these diamond chests for the miner to auto output into. Let's put in the mining pipes. And let's slap these batteries in here. And there we go. It is beginning to mine stuff. So this is a lot of what I'm going to be doing next. And just to make sure that this miner keeps working, we can put one of these personal anchors down. And just 4 hours is probably enough before the batteries run out. Anyway, that's all I have for this check-in. I do not know how to end the video. Greg. 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 Greg.